Watch this. A hinge is broken. That's a broken hinge right there. The plunger worked, but the hinge is broken. There's the broken hinge. Welcome to the world's dirtiest workshop. This is Christopher Thunder here, and today I'm going to talk about the 2013 Subaru Forester glove box. The hinges on the glove box door here in front of me, there's one here and one over here. They're rather small. There's only two of them, and they're marked by blue tape. You can see the blue tape on either hinge. This one is broken. And it turns out that they were both broken at one time or another. There is a design problem with the hinges on this glove box cover, the door. When you go to install the door after replacing the air filter and the cabin filter of the car, you lay the hinges onto some plastic bars that are cut into the side of the glove box, for lack of a better term. So there's actually holes above and below, and they're kind of formed into these little shapes that look like bars. So you're going to lock the glove box door in there and then shut it. If it's not properly aligned and you try and shut the door, you will snap off these hinges rather abruptly. You'll hear a crack and both of these hinges will be shot, and then you'll have to start over again with a $200 glove box door. And you don't want that. I'm going to do this in the sun so everybody can see. This will engage the wall of glove box area. So that's going to stop your glove box door from falling. The same piece over here will do the same thing. And this is going to give you trouble when installing the glove box. Here's the glove box plunger pin. I've gotten my glove box back without this plunger being attached to this. It's sort of like a shock absorber. Keeps the door from falling away too quickly. Gives the door a nice feel when you open it. Today I'm going to repair these glove box hinges, and I'm going to make them stronger than before. And I'm going to show you exactly how I did that using some adhesive. Probably epoxy. And I might even use a little super glue to lock them in place for the adhesive to dry or the epoxy to dry. So the epoxy might be a 6-minute epoxy, and that might cure in 24 to 48 hours. The super glue will dry in seconds, and it'll be rather hard, but still will cure in 24 hours or so. Having different glues really helps, so I'm here to show you how to use those glues to make a nice strong bond so that you can get back on the road with your glove box and not have to worry about it breaking on you when you go to open it again. You can see here the plastic is stretched and torn. You can see over here right there the plastic was also stretched and torn, and this hinge was also broken off. Underneath the blue tape you're going to see some binary epoxy. Oh look, that binary epoxy came right off. That did not even stick at all. That might be why the other hinge had broken again. So what did I do wrong with that binary epoxy? Maybe I didn't roughen the surface there. So when you do apply binary epoxy, make sure that the surface is perfectly clean, and you might want to sand that down with a little 600 grit. Did the binary epoxy actually stick? And the answer is no, not really. It's probably the wrong epoxy, and this might not have been perfectly clean. So that's how that snapped off, right there. Yeah, that just popped right off of there. Very poor adhesion for this joint. So we're going to do this again, and we're going to do it a lot stronger. Here's what the dashboard looks like with the door removed. You can see here the hinge sits on this heavier piece of plastic here and here, And that's a real problem. It's a square peg in a round hole. A somewhat squarish piece of plastic that goes into a roundish hook, and the door has to be at the right angle to be inserted onto that bar. If you do it wrong and try and shut the door, you will snap the hinge on the door. And that has to be done pretty regularly to get at this filter door right here. You can see maybe through those vents the top of the filter. People do remove the door to view the filter. You know, I can see with the door removed how dirty that filter is. But if it's going to be removed that often for regular maintenance, you'd think that they would build the hinges a little bit better so that they won't snap off. This part is made pretty well. The part that's on the door itself, not so good. You can see here that this door hinge is completely broken off. Here's what the door looks like with the door hinges on it. Before you fix something like this, make sure you mark the pieces. 1 dot for the right side, 2 dots for the left side. Don't forget to rough up the inside of the broken piece, because you're going to put a little coat of epoxy on that as well. And that's going to reinforce everything. So this door will be stronger than the factory door that you put on. The file wasn't getting the surface completely roughed up, so I'm just going to come back with the sandpaper and just hit it again. And that's going to make sure that that is all very well roughed up. And it'll even go on the inside too. Already. There's some epoxy in here already, but the epoxy didn't hold. If you want an epoxy joint to hold better, clean up the joint where the plastic is torn. The plastic molecules, they tend to separate. You get this foamy kind of a plastic when you stretch it. And that's not a good foundation for epoxy to grip. So what I'm going to suggest is file down the material first. Try to use a bigger file. Try to get it as flat as you can to make a good mating surface. Now, some of the epoxy here is sticking really, really good. You can see it's not really coming off of there. And some of it didn't. So there's hope that I can make this thing seriously tough. Just have to do it right. Because if I don't, the next guy that takes my glove box door off to maintain my air filter, that person's going to break it. I broke it once, so I know exactly how easy it is to break. You can see there that some of the epoxy is held and some of it didn't. So we're just going to go to the file here. Fast dry compound that I like to use. Whenever you work with this stuff, make sure you have the mixing plate ready, which is this piece of cardboard here. Puncture the tube with the cap, lay out a small bit. Alright, so we have a small line there. Come back with the other component, puncture it, lay out a small bit, about the same amount, get the cap on that one. So it's all guesswork, you're just guessing how much you got. Get your tool ready, start mixing. I like to keep most of the material in a small blob. Keep working it together. Some people like to use a card, some people like to use a stick. So I'm just using a stick here, or a metal rod. And this stuff is coming out a little darker than I'm used to seeing it. But that should be just fine. Okay, you don't want to get any of this on the camera if you can avoid it, but run a bead along the area that you're going to repair. Stuff is thick enough that it should hold the pieces together. But from time to time, as I'm experiencing right now, it's not holding it together. It's going to fall over with time because of gravity, so I'm going to have to prop this up. So now I've got it propped up, and I'm just kind of positioning the piece. I don't have a lot of epoxy on either side of the repair. And I just want to make sure that the pieces are lined up. So I'm eyeballing the attachment all the way down to the other piece. You want to eyeball that all the way down to the other side. Make sure it's lined up. The funny thing about this side was the surface wasn't perfectly cleaned, so there's an edge where the epoxy stuck on the inside, but on the outside edge it didn't stick at all. So it created like a hinge, and the piece was flopping around. So it was totally broken off, and now it's flopping around. So that shows you that the stuff can be strong, but if the surface isn't clean, you're not going to get a proper repair. This side's prepared properly. This side is not, and we're going to check out the difference between the two to see how strong they are. And hopefully, if I test it, this one will break because it's not prepared, and this one will be strong because it was prepared. So how fast does this stuff cure? Well, I'm at about 5 minutes, and it's getting really stiff. So I'm going to say about 5 minutes. I'm going to have to wipe this off before it gets too hard. Here are the two repairs. This is the side where I applied a bead of epoxy across the front. Here's the side that I had actually cleaned up and filed, and there's a smaller bead across the front. I would not put any pressure on that for a while. This is at about an hour. This is something that's always bothered me. This is like a square peg in a round hole. Here are the two repairs. This is the side where I applied a bead of epoxy across the front. Here's the side that I had actually cleaned up and filed, and there's a smaller bead across the front. I would not put any pressure on that for a while. This is at about an hour. We're going to give this a quick tap test. So you're not ready to put that back in yet. If I try to put that into the car, that'll break. So still gummy, not ready yet. Another quickie tap test. Looks like that's bonding pretty good. Quickie tap test. That's bonding pretty well. Even though it's a little gummy, I can still clean up anything that I might have not gotten perfect. That's what that side looks like now. So that's going to be underneath the dashboard. Nobody will see that. That's what that side looks like right now, and that's going to be out of sight. Nobody will see that as well. Yeah. There's a pin in here which engages with this plastic, and that keeps this from falling all the way. Here's your plunger. If you install that first, the door won't fall. This side is also engaged with the wall here, so the door won't fall. but the hinges are not engaged. And that's a problem. There's a trick to this. You need to engage the hinges first, and then get the rest of the mechanicals to engage. And to demonstrate how difficult this job is and what the challenges are, is that is strong as hell. That's a real, I am squeezing that with a lot of force on my fingers. And that won't break. However, this one just snapped right off. Again, while I was trying to install the glove box again. Broken again. So we're going to try and glue it again. When you run into this kind of situation, super glue it first and then epoxy it over top. Look at that. Wow. Got that one right. What I'm going to do to install this glove box, I'm going to slide it into its hinges while the glove box is really open. Like really, really far. And then I'm going to rotate it up by holding it firmly. I'm going to really push it in hard. See how I'm holding the top of it? Hear that pop? That's these parts here engaging. Now I'm going to take the plunger over here and put it in place and shut the door. And down here, you're going to see that both of these parts are still attached and they're not broken. That's how you install your glove box door. Do it any other way and you will snap your glove box off. The glove box door hinge problem is kind of twofold. One, you can wind up torquing this piece and snapping it right off. Number two is this opening doesn't always fit the shape of the hinge. It's a terrible design. The door must be at the right angle to be installed. If you get it wrong and then you rotate the door, you will snap it off. You'll literally torque it right off. You will break it this way, open it up and snap it off. Which is an absolutely awful thing. Whoever designed this was not thinking about the everyday mechanic or individual just going in there and opening the door and removing it. They will glance at the instructions and then they will snap it off. Labels can be helpful if they're very simple. How do you know the glove box is working correctly? Open it. Shut it. See how it just drops carefully and slowly? I've gotten my glove box back from mechanics and had it just drop and thunk. That's a properly working Forester glove box door. And the hinges are not broken. Once you've installed your glove box door and you're sure you haven't broken the hinges,